I just felt that I was being pushed out. I felt like police didn't care about me. I'd given, nearly 8.5 years of my life to serve in the community, to working hard for the police, and then they didn't care about me anymore. The only reason I was asking these questions was because we were introduced as a safe space to ask questions, and if we can't speak about these things on a training course openly, where can we talk about them? Well, the claims against me were that I was racist, I was homophobic, that I'd broken policy on race, religion and culture, but I hadn't done any of these things. You have on a number of occasions engaged in discussions which have at times made people feel uncomfortable and unsettled. I mean, the only person that made a complaint from that training course, as far as I know, was the Muslim sergeant. To me, it felt like slander. You're tearing down my good name, and I felt like I was just being accused of all these things and everything was spiraling out of my control. It was just gutting. I just didn't understand at all what was going on. So when I attended the police station, I was told to go into a side meeting room, and without even telling me why I was in the room or what was going on, the inspector started pointing a finger at me and saying, "I don't like your beliefs. I don't like your beliefs." And I'm like, what have I done? I asked some questions on the training course which were appropriate questions about the subject matter. This is me doing some community work in a local school. My name is Luke Salmons. I was a PCSO for North Yorkshire Police for just over 8 years. I loved the job. Loved working in the communities, interacting with people. I love to learn about different cultures. I love to know what's going on, and most importantly, as a police community support officer, I'm the one that's on the street day in, day out. I am the first point of contact often for the general public, so I need to understand what's going on. I need to understand the tensions in the community. I need to understand the beliefs in the community, the different religions that are in the community, to help keep all those people safe. The training courses were stated that they were safe places, but I felt that the emphasis was very much on you will take on board what we are telling you to take on board, and that if you ask questions, we'll look down on you for asking questions, and we'll criticise you for asking questions, and complaints will be made for asking questions. So because I asked questions on several different training courses, my inspector and other people didn't like this. They didn't like the fact that I asked questions. In October 2024, I attended the training course at the North Yorkshire Police Headquarters in North Allerton. This course was on race, religion and culture. The course was very much based on Islam. There was a small part about Christianity, which publicised Christianity in a bad light. It was to do with if the world was coming to an end and you had so many people and you wanted to take them to a different planet to start and repopulate the human race, who would you take? And there was a Christian vicar who didn't agree with homosexual marriage. And that's the only part of Christianity they spoke about in the whole entire course. And they made him out to be in a bad light because he didn't agree with homosexual marriage. So the rest of the course was pretty much about Islam. At one point, the trainers actually walked up and down the room chanting, "Islam is a religion of peace," over and over again for several minutes. I was thinking to myself, this, it doesn't feel like a training course anymore. It feels more like, indoctrination. As part of the course, we had a Muslim sergeant that spoke to us, and he was speaking about being a Muslim in North Yorkshire Police and about his faith. He openly invited questions. So I asked a question to the sergeant, and I asked him about the situation in the Middle East, because obviously the war in Gaza and Israel was at a height. And I was thinking we need to understand these things so we can keep people in the community safe and we can police the streets better. So I asked him around, what his thoughts as a Muslim were around organisations such as Hamas and ISIS and the atrocities that these organisations carry out in the name of Islam, and how he feels about this as a peaceful Muslim officer. We had a conversation back and forward. It was very respectful. The Muslim officer was asking me lots of questions as well. He was very happy to communicate with me. I also asked the officer what he understood the term jihad to mean, because we heard the term jihad bounced around a lot in the news about what's going on in Gaza. So I wanted to know from a peaceful Muslim officer, what he understands the term jihad, and how we can, if we come across that term on the streets, how we can explain that and understand what it means. And so the conversation right throughout was very respectful. In fact, I actually ended the conversation during the open time of questioning, saying that I'd love to speak to him more, but obviously this, we had other things to do and more questions to ask, so we'd end the conversation there. I was half an hour early to my shift. I was told to leave the building and come back when my shift started. I thought that's strange. So I left the building, I came back when my shift started. I was then told to go into a side meeting room by the inspector, with the inspector and the sergeant. And without even telling me why I was in the room or what was going on, the inspector started pointing a finger at me and saying, "I don't like your beliefs, I don't like your beliefs," which she said to me several times. And then she said, "I don't like your beliefs on LGBTQ." And I'm sat there thinking, what's she talking about? I've never talked about any LGBTQ issues. I don't have an issue. Why are you accusing me of this? What? And then she said, "I've spoken to the sergeant who led one of the sessions on the training course, and I think what you've said and talked about is disgusting, and I don't want you on my team." And I'm like, what have I done? I asked some questions on the training course which were appropriate questions about the subject matter. I was then told to leave my phone and my Warwick card and to leave the building. So I went home. I'm really shocked. I'm really confused. I don't know what to expect. Nobody's told me anything. So the next day, I get a phone call from this inspector. She tells me that she's referring it to Professional Standards Department and that they are suspending me for gross misconduct, and that I was to attend the police station the following Monday to collect the suspension paperwork. To me, it felt like slander. You're tearing down my good name. There's something that I've never done. I've never been racist, never been homophobic. And I felt like I was just being accused of all these things and everything was spiraling out of my control. So I just got to a point where I just thought, I can't go on like this. I can't, because of the impact it's having on myself, my family, my children. It was just too much. And I thought, I'm gonna resign. I felt pushed out. I didn't want to resign. I love my job in the police, but I felt I had no other option but to resign and take a different job elsewhere. So in May 2025, I resigned from the police. To me, it was crazy. To me, everything I'd voiced and spoken about had been ignored, and it was their intention all along, and the intention of this inspector, their plan: get rid of him, get rid of Luke, we don't want him anymore, we'll do whatever it takes, we'll just ignore him completely, push him out the door and bar him from policing. And it was just gutting. I mean, it affects your whole future if you go for another job and you say, oh, I've had 8.5 great years in the police, but it doesn't read like that. It feels like you got dismissed for breaking policy on race, religion and culture, and you think, well, someone's just going to look at that and then they're not going to give me a job, are they? When they've done nothing wrong. It's just crazy. I wanted to fight this because I thought a great injustice had been done against me. I thought, this is wrong. How can I be dismissed and put on a police barred list for simply asking questions? So I thought, right, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to do whatever it needs to do. And the Christian Legal Centre were absolutely brilliant. They said, right, okay, let's put an appeal in. We're going to help you. We're going to take this on. We're going to work with you. And it was just amazing. I was just blown away by their compassion, their help, the support. It was just amazing. So in December 2025, myself and my union rep went to see the Chief Constable of North Yorkshire Police. He was there with his HR team, I was there with my union rep. So I got about 20 minutes into my presentation and the Chief said, okay, I want to have a break. So he went out of the room with his team. They had a chat for a few minutes out of the room. He came back into the room and he said, right, I've heard enough, I'm throwing it out. So in January 2026, I got a letter through the post saying that the allegations against me were gone, basically, that it should have been dealt with through a discussion around the table and it wasn't gross misconduct, and that I was therefore taken off the police barred list and I could work for the police again if I wanted to. Just going to read to you the response from the Chief Constable of North Yorkshire Police. You have on a number of occasions engaged in discussions or provided feedback, primarily in training sessions, which have at times made people feel uncomfortable and unsettled. I do not, however, find that this represents a breach amounting to gross misconduct of any of the police standards of professional behaviour. In consideration of the above, I therefore do not agree with the panel finding of gross misconduct and your appeal is upheld. Had you still been employed by NYP, I would have recommended reflective practice in line with the staff discipline procedure. Consequently, you will not be on the College of Policing barred list. This shouldn't have taken 15 months to reach this conclusion. This could have been sorted out with a discussion round the table the day after the accusations were put against me. Why it took 15 months, I don't know. Yes, I'm pleased that everything's been settled and I can finally move on with my life. I do believe, however, that there needs to be radical change within our police forces. The training courses that are provided, they need to be safe spaces, they need to be fair spaces, they should not be weighted towards Islam or LGBTQ. They should be fair across the board, and no one should feel uncomfortable or threatened for expressing their beliefs or opinions.